Hello everyone, it is Wednesday, April 25th, and the sun is just getting ready to go down in sunny Summerfield, North Carolina. It's another week, another show, and hey, you get to see us this week. We are excited to be able to present this program to you. We have a very exciting show for you. We're going to be talking about spiritual prosperity tonight, and there's an experience I would like to share with you before we get to the show. This is something that a little more recent than some of my other experiences I have been sharing with you. Something that happened a little over a year ago. We were doing a actual prosperity ritual, and we were asking for the assistance of one of the creator gods called Unas. And Unas is a creator god that creates other gods. So he's a very powerful being. And we were asking for his assistance for something we were working toward. And we had started doing the ritual, and a few weeks passed by, and I wasn't too familiar with this particular deity. So I said, in passing while we were doing one of the rituals, I said, boy, it would be really nice for Unas to stop by and say hello. I would like to meet him. I would like to meet this deity that we're calling upon so that I can feel more comfortable in my own space and mind. And so probably 2 days after I had made this request, I had just the most phenomenal experience while Dr. Gibson and I were actually in bed. We were he was sleeping and I was sitting up. And in our bedroom, we have like 10 windows. And on each of these windows, we have wooden blinds. And in this vision that I realized that I had, the blinds just started to just kind of vibrate up and down, and they finally just rolled up toward the top like some great big wind gushed through and actually made them go toward the top. Looking around in my vision, I know none of the windows are open, so I'm wondering, where is this wind coming from? Why are all the blinds going toward the top? So I'm looking over. I look over at Mitchell, and he's still sleeping, and I'm wondering why he didn't wake up because of the noise. It was a great noise that went through. If you ever had wooden blinds, you would know what I'm talking about. So now I'm a little bit nervous because there's 10 blinds going out crazy like there's a big gush of wind. And I kind of looked out of the window that was closest to me. I looked out the window and I saw that the sky was very, very bright. And like I said, we were in bed, we were getting ready to go to sleep. And so it's dark outside. It's probably 10:30. We go to bed pretty early. And I'm looking out, and the sky's very bright like it's daylight, and I'm wondering what is going on. Okay, so there's this blast of wind going through the room, and the blinds have went to the top. I can see clearly outside, and I see this figure just kind of floating in the air. It's far away, and it was coming closer, and I'm looking closer at the figure, and I'm like, okay, there's this being coming toward us, and from a distance it looked like it was like a copy of Jesus. The figure had on a white robe and long dark hair, and it looked like the depiction that we see of Jesus in the movies, and he's just kind of floating in the air, floating toward the window that I'm looking out of, and I'm like kind of elbowing Mitchell, going, look, there's this being coming, and he's looked like he's getting ready to come inside of our room. So as he got closer, I'm looking at the figure, the face of this being, and I'm like, okay, he looked like he was Jesus from far away, but as he gets closer, it's not looking like Jesus. It's starting to look like somebody else. I go, I wonder if this could be Unas. I wonder if this is Unas' way to say hello. So as he's coming closer to the window, it looks like there was like a camera crew that suddenly appeared, and the camera crew was taking pictures of this being floating in the air coming toward our home. It looks like it was a helicopter outside flashing the light looking at this being. I mean, obviously there's a floating person coming in the sky around our neighborhood. It looked like the neighbors that came out. Now, in our neighborhood, it's very quiet, and none of our neighbors would come out if something like that occurred. So this was very unusual. So he's still floating toward me. He's looking right at me. I'm looking at him. My mouth is. Can you believe that this deity is floating toward us? So he floats right through the window, right through the walls, and he's just staring at me. In my mouth, you can only imagine. Can you? It's that I couldn't talk. Can't talk now. There's this being. I'm trying to elbow him to wake him up, saying, "Honey, it's the rapture. It's the rapture. I mean, it's time. It's time." And the deity just looking at me like, "What is wrong with her?" And he stares at me, and I'm looking out at him, and he goes, "And she's not even Wiccan." And that kind of paused me in the vision, because I said, now that's a very odd thing to say, even for a deity, and she's not even Wiccan. I'm like, what exactly does that mean? The Wiccans summon Unas, or what is he talking about? So I'm looking at him. I said, okay, obviously it's not the rapture, so there's got to be something else going on. So he's looking at me, and he's basically saying, well, you said to stop by and say hello. And I'm like, oh my God. Hi. I did say that. I did ask you to come and you stop by, and really appreciate it, but I'm really nervous in bed, because, I mean, when you're face to face with a powerful being, this is a creator God. I mean, for him to even stop by was a blessing, but now he's sitting there and he's looking at me, and I'm looking stupid. So I'm like, okay. And he just kind of looked at me, smiled, and kind of floated back out through the window. The helicopter and the neighbors all kind of dissipated and went away, and I'm just sitting there in shock, stunned, and can't believe that Mitchell didn't see any of this. He was still asleep. So when everything calmed down, the blinds went back down, and it's kind of quiet. I'm just looking around, and I can't believe that just happened. So I finally wake Mitchell up, and I tell him about this experience, and he's like, wow, sounds like you had quite the experience. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll be careful next time. I said I would want a deity to come by and say hello. So we are doing a show today on spiritual prosperity, and he's one of the creator gods, and he's known for bringing prosperity to people who ask for it. So I thought this was an appropriate experience to share with you. It floored me, I can tell you that was a vision that was so real that it had to happen. I can't make it up. And I know that many people, when they're asking deities, as you become more spiritually powerful, you're going to be asking and requesting things of these beings, and you just have to be careful what you ask for. You have to be prepared for what's going to happen if you do meet them. You have to be prepared for that. Obviously, I asked to meet a deity. He came by. I wasn't quite ready for him to come. My ego immediately goes to the Christian background and thinking it was the rapture and it was in the time, but it was just somebody stopping by to say hello. So as you become more powerful, be very careful what you think and say and what you request, because it's going to happen to you, but you have to be prepared for it, and you have to have faith that these things are going to be granted to you, and when it does occur, you need to know how to react and respond. So that is the experience I wanted to share with you. For those who contact me on a regular basis, I want to tell you that, God does hear you, and you're going to have some faith that the things that you're asking for are going to happen for you. Don't just think that you're not worthy, and I think that worthiness part comes into play, especially when you're doing things spiritually. You feel you're not worthy for the Creator or His deities that He has to work with us. You think you're not worthy of that type of attention, and nothing could be further from the truth. You are all children of God. We all are. And God wants you to have that same experience if that is what you are wishing to have. So You have to have that personal relationship with God. I'll say it over and over as many times as necessary on every broadcast, because some people are getting it and some people are not. But when you do get it, you know that it's real, that faith is there, and things will start happening, and you can start changing the reality of your life by having that faith. So that's my experience. That's my introduction for today, and I'm going to turn the show over to, of course, my love of my life. There he is. We're sitting by each other.
Here I
is. So here's Dr. Gibson. Thank you so much.
Yay, Kathy! Thank you so much. Now the screen's blank except for my shoulder.
Okay.
So let's get in the screen. Today is going to be a different kind of show because we wanted to talk about some things that we've kind of hinted at in the past, and some things that I think are very important for people to understand about prosperity and about how to interact with the beings that create what we call prosperity. But before we do that, we got to get some of the basics out of the way. We are way behind on questions. So this week we're going to try to catch up on a lot of the questions. We're going to skip some of the normal formatting that we have because I have my trusty iPad right here, and people, and I really appreciate all the questions and comments and pictures that you've sent, but we have just got a ton of pictures, a ton of questions, a ton of testimonials, a ton of comments. And in an hour format, if we don't take some time, like a show like this, and get to some of these, we'll never get to them. So I want everybody that sends in a question to have a chance, everybody that sends in a comment to have a chance, everybody that sends in a picture to have a chance to see it live on the broadcast. So today we're going to spend a lot of time on that content that we've kind of put to the side and haven't been able to get to a lot of it. So I want everybody to feel like if you have a subscription, you're a part of the show, and we're just a small, happy family. And I really want to thank Kathy for her input. She gets a lot of emails. She gets a lot of people writing and thanking her, both male and female, from all over the world. So we really appreciate your support, and she certainly appreciates it because she doesn't like to be on the camera. She doesn't like to be out front. And I'm just really happy that she's getting more comfortable with her power, with her energy, with her voice, and it's just really heartwarming to see. We have a book for you. This is our book, The First Darkness. This isn't a JPEG. This is not something that you would just see as part of the computer program. It's actually a three-dimensional book. And it is, in my opinion, the best book that I have ever written. It is packed with information. It's a great story. It's extraordinarily entertaining. People have called it a page turner. And you can find it on our website now. You can also find it on Amazon, and it'll soon be in bookstores and all over the world. But it is the first book that I've written that I'm going to call a spiritual thriller. And it is nonfiction. Even though it may seem that there are some parts of it that are real, I'm going to tell you that the whole thing is fictional. It is not real. It is not something that I wrote from what happened with us. It's not something that I wrote that happened with the angels. It's not nonfiction. It is entirely fictional. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that there isn't spiritual knowledge in there. It doesn't mean that there aren't tidbits of information that you can use in the real world that have spiritual power. That's how I write. I combine spiritual knowledge, information, learning, teaching with fictional characters, with fictional settings that help sort of bring the points home. It is a book that I think would one day probably make a great movie. It kind of reads like a movie. That's the kind of thing I like to write. We have worked with Hollywood studios. We've worked as a consultant with television in the past. I've worked with TV stations and radio stations for years, so I kind of think in media terms. I kind of write in a media-friendly manner. And the love story in the book and the spiritual understanding in the book, the characters on the cover are the central characters. Though there are a number of other characters in the book. I am in the book. My beautiful wife, Kathy, is in the book. She's a major character. But angels and people who are going between lives are the major characters of the book. And the book is set also in the astral world, in the physical world, and in the different aspects of the celestial world. So it's one of the first books that go full spectrum over all the different areas of our reality. So we're very excited about it. If you buy the book from us or online, make sure you come by the office one day and I'll be glad to sign it for you. But please leave us a good, 5 stars. I love 5 stars. That's 5 fingers. On Amazon. And that way we can get some traction. It's already on the bestseller list on Amazon, but I want to get it on the New York Times bestseller list. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. It's one of the things that I have left in this life that I want to do. So I want to leave that as something that I want to ask my fans to do. And I certainly appreciate your support and all your help. And we certainly enjoy all the things that you do for us. And it's something that we really appreciate everybody doing and everybody helping us with. So it's something that we enjoy. It's something that I like doing. And if you can do that, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So let's talk about spiritual prosperity just for a few minutes. We're going to be offering a great number of new items that are ritual based. We have never really done this before. And I've been blessed with a number of great books from the order, which I've never seen before. And they allow me to understand and share prosperity with people in a way that I never have. It also allows for actual healing. It allows for changing karma in ways we haven't been able to change before. This actually even goes beyond the cleansing work that we do, which I think is extraordinary. Something I wish I could have offered when I was working as a psychiatrist. But this is something that allows us to go what I consider the next level. I'm going to tell you a little story about magic that is important for you to understand. When I was growing up, we lived in a house that was 2 bedrooms. The first house that I lived in was 2 bedrooms, and there were 10 people living in the house. It was my 5 brothers and sisters, my cousin, my grandparents, and my mother. There was a lot of people, and there were other people that came in and out. So there were always between 8 and 10 people in these 2 bedrooms, which meant that the youngest children, which was myself, we slept on the floor a lot. I slept on the floor actually until I was about 12 years old. And even to this day, I still like a mattress to be relatively firm. I like a pillow to be relatively firm because we didn't have pillows. We had sheets that we bundled up, and that's what you put your head on. Well, in the wintertime, it's cold on the floor. And in our house when I grew up, I would place a glass of water on the floor at night. And in the morning, it would be filled with roaches. And the water would be frozen over the roaches. That's how cold it was, and those were the conditions that I grew up in. Quite often, we had to make the decision as a family to eat or to buy heating oil. And that went on until I graduated high school. Under those circumstances, we didn't have running water. We didn't have a regular grocery menu. So if we bought groceries on Friday, they were usually gone by Sunday or Monday. We didn't have a lot of the things that I consider to be basics for life. But it was ironic to me because we went to church every Sunday, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And it was ironic to me because we prayed. We went to clean up the church. We went to a revival meeting. We went to evening service. We went to morning service. I taught Sunday school. We cleaned the church. But we stayed poor. I remember one Christmas, we didn't have any money. We didn't get anything for Christmas. We got up and we sat around. We did have a Christmas tree, and we told jokes. That was our Christmas present. We told jokes for Christmas. There were no presents under the tree. There was no Christmas dinner. I think we had sandwiches, and my mother made some potatoes. And that was our Christmas meal. But I was an avid reader. And I learned about the properties of magic and the way that you could interact with the gods to change your lot in life. I had picked up meditation around the time I entered puberty, and it really changed my consciousness. It changed how I understood the reality that was around me, and it made my grades shoot up. But I noticed that even though I was going to church, we were doing all this work, my material life wasn't changing at all. And I thought, all this time, all this energy, and we were giving at least 10 to 15% of what we made to the church, even though we didn't have much. And we were doing that tithing work, and we weren't getting anything back for our investment. We were known as the poor family in the neighborhood, and people bought us clothes, they bought us food, and it was very nice and very supportive that they did that. But it also caused a great deal of shame. And it created a drive in me to want to look for a way to move beyond what I saw was just abject poverty. We didn't have a car, we didn't have a telephone, we had a little 12-inch television that we all huddled around and had 3 channels. I shared a room with my 2 brothers, and the room is probably the size of the closet that we have now. You could barely fit 2 beds in there. My mother slept in a room with my 2 sisters after we got our own house. And I was in high school before we got beds, which was a great event. So as I pondered this, we were going to church, we were doing all our work, our religious work, but we were just barely getting by. And then my mother got sick, and she had to end up going on disability. And she was in the hospital at one point in a sanatorium for a disease called sarcoidosis for 6 months. And during that time period, we had no income and were completely dependent on my grandparents. And that was the time when I truly began to look toward a different sort of focus in my life, because what I saw the course of my life being was I was going to get a job in a factory, I was going to stay in Ellerby, and I was going to be a poor person the rest of my life. I had several gifts. I was very intelligent. I liked to read, and I was good with people. But I was not going to let my life go down that road. I knew that I had to do something different. So I talked with my pastor. Yes, I did. His name, I won't give his real name. I'll just call him Pastor Johnson. And I talked with the pastor about my concern about our conditions in life. That we were doing all this work, but we were still poor. That we were going to church, we were praying, we were tithing, we were reading the Bible, we believed in Jesus, we were faithful. But why were we still poor? And the pastor sat, he was very erudite, he was very quiet, very calm, and he looked at me and he said, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, there are some people that God says, not now. There are some people that God says, I will bless you later. And there are some people that God says, you will never receive a blessing more than what you have. So he said for me to be patient and that God would give me an answer later in my life. But right now, that was what was going to happen for me. I couldn't accept that. It raised questions in my mind. It caused me to have more questions in my mind because I wasn't able just to accept wait. I went home and I was hungry. I went home and I was in that cold floor with the roaches and the glass water, and in the summertime it was hotter than all heck because we had fans in the window. And I realized that something was missing. And I looked around the neighborhood, and I lived in a poor neighborhood. It was like a country ghetto. Most of the people in the neighborhood were maybe one step above where we were. Most people didn't have decent cars. A lot of people, almost nobody had air conditioning. Most people, there wasn't a person in the neighborhood that made more than $10 an hour. There wasn't anybody that made a 6-figure salary. Nobody made more than $10 an hour. There may have been a few people on the other side of the tracks that might have made $20,000 or $30,000 a year, but it seemed to me that the formula that we had adopted, that I had accepted for life, was not working. So it opened my consciousness. While I was meditating, I came in contact with other beings. And after my discussion with my pastor, I realized that you can't talk to him about the things that you're seeing. I did once, and my mother got some peak switches out and took care of that particular fiasco, but I never shared those visions again. And I realized that there's another reality out there. There's a whole reality out there that wasn't being explained to me by my adherence to my religious fundamentalist doctrine and background. I needed to explore on my own. And I needed to understand at a fundamental level what prosperity and happiness and harmony in life was. I had seen people get shot, stabbed. I had seen people get run over by cars. The Klan was active in my hometown, and I'd seen an old lady get run down by a horse by a Klansman. I'd been in fights because of my color in school, and it was just ridiculous. And I thought, I'm doing all this work in church, but why all this chaos and poverty and disharmony? There's got to be more. So one day when I was at school, I saw a book on mythology. It was Edith Hamilton's Mythology. And that opened a big doorway. In that book, it changed my understanding, and a light bulb began to go off in my head. A big, bright light bulb. Sometimes on the right, sometimes on the left. But a huge light bulb began to go off in my head. She likes that. The book talked about gods as though they were real people. It showed us that there were people around, beings around, that heard prayers, that could offer assistance to humans, but they weren't being talked about in church. And I kept this book to myself, and nobody else could get the book at school because I used to take that book home. It was a huge book, and I took that book home every day. I would lug it, and between classes I would read about the gods and the goddesses, and I wanted to know more about the reality of these beings. I read about Apollo and Hercules and Chongo and Brahma and Vishnu and all the different beings from all the different cultures, and it struck me that all the cultures had gods. And that even in Christianity, angels were worshipped as one times as gods. And that when people worked with the gods, their life got better. Well, I thought, I can't get any worse. I can't lose anything. So I began to research and try to understand the reality of these gods. I didn't tell my family anything about them, but I did a lot of work trying to figure out exactly what this connection was between humanity and gods. And I must have read that book from cover to cover. The book is well over 600-700, almost 1,000 pages, but I read that book from cover to cover. And then something struck me, just like a bolt out of the blue. I was meditating one day, and I met a being who was floating, who was very tall, who looked just like me, except that he didn't have any hair. Well, I don't have any hair now, but I had hair back then. I used to have dreadlocks, and there's another story. But when I met this being, I realized that everything that I was reading in books on mythology probably was real. The being introduced himself as Dajanti, and I never heard of Dajanti, but I went and looked up the word Dajanti, and I found that Dajanti was the same as Thoth. Well, I knew Thoth. I read about him. And I realized that Thoth, showing up as me, meant that I had a connection to all of these beings that I was reading about. And as I meditated more and more and more, I met more of these entities. And I noticed that, well, you kind of look like my friend David. Or one would look like a girl I knew in school. And then over time, I began to talk to these beings in my meditations. And I realized that we were all descended from these beings. The reason they look like us is because they created us. Now that was a phenomenal leap in understanding for me at the time. They created us, but we are cut off from that. The Buddha said that the reason for suffering is desire. I'm going to add something to that, if I might. I find that part of the reason for our suffering is that we are cut off from our spiritual parents. The only way that a god or a being like a Thoth or an Isis or Brahma, Vishnu, or any of the major gods can interact with the human world is by taking human form. Now, these beings are beings that can live for hundreds of millions of years, and some of them are billions of years old. And I learned that they can create forms all over the universe, not only just our solar system and our galaxy, but all over the known universe and even beyond that. Now, what does this have to do with prosperity? Well, these are beings that are extraordinarily powerful, and more than that, extraordinarily capable and wealthy. When I grew up, I was cut off from my divine power because I had chosen to worship in a religion that said, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," that thou shalt only believe in Jesus and he is the truth, the way, and the light. But I realized that all these other beings are out there just waiting for us to ask for their help. And I realized that in order for the religion that I was worshiping in to have the kind of power that it does, they had to massacre a lot of people. And I read about massacres and wars and inquisitions and all these things all over the world that placed the world in a huge dark period where the gods didn't disappear. They didn't go away. They were just pushed behind the curtain. And if a person bothered to open the curtain, that curtain would reveal to them certain things. As I grew up, I always held to this understanding that there are gods that are real, that are right next to us. And I always held to my experiences with meditation and meeting the gods. And I wrote about it in a book called Living Soul or Your Immortal Body of Light. Same book, just different publishers, slightly different content, but pretty much the same book. When I reached, I would say, the first year out of residency, I was married to a different woman, good person, but I recognized that I had a burning desire to follow the path of magic and ritual. I had a good salary at that time. I was making probably $150,000 a year, and I thought, this is good, this is wonderful. But I noticed that a lot of people I was working with were suffering the way that I had suffered as a child, and that suffering was something that was just totally not acceptable to me. There were people that I would meet in my private practice that were not responding to the medicines that I would give them. They were not responding to some of the things that I would do, and I put them in the hospital. Some of the people I had to give shock treatments. And I recognized that my life was going fine, but the suffering around me was just bothering me more than I would have liked. And when a person died that I was taking care of, oh my God, that just was not acceptable. It's one of the reasons I chose psychiatry, so that people didn't die as often. So it occurred to me that something was missing and I needed to do something about it. My wife was Lutheran at the time, and she went to church regularly, but I realized that I had already gone that path, and I needed to find something in my life that worked differently. Because I realized when I watched people, even in Methodist or Lutheran or Baptist or whatever holiness church I went to, their lives didn't change. Their lives stayed the same. They didn't become any healthier necessarily. They didn't become any wiser. There was no enlightened people in the church. It seemed like a ritual that had the purpose of perpetuating itself. And so I began to read books on rituals and magic and mysticism. And I found a few books that I liked. And I found a ritual that appealed to me. And it was a ritual for help. I had a client that I really liked. His name was Tom, that's his real name. And Tom was very depressed. I had tried him on several different antidepressants, and nothing helped him. And we were going to do shock treatments on him. And I tried a ritual for health on him. It was a ritual that I did on a Friday. It was dedicated to the goddess Venus. And I also put him on a specific machine that boosted certain energies that we were sending into him. And I came to work the next day. He was in the hospital. And Tom was just beaming. He said, I don't know what you did, but I feel better. My energy's up. I'm brighter, and I want to go home. I thought, okay, coincidence perhaps, maybe a flight into health, maybe he's planning to kill himself. So I kept him a couple more days. And usually if a person's having a flight into health, trying to kill themselves, after a couple days, that sort of bright, false healing goes away, and the real depression surfaces. Well, it didn't surface. He stayed well. And I had him come back to the office 2 weeks later. He was still bright. 6 months later, he was still great. And I was hooked. He actually didn't even need antidepressants for 6 months. And I thought, I did something that helped this man who was severely depressed, that we were on the verge of giving shock treatments. He responded to something that he didn't even know. I never told him that I did that. He just felt better, and he thanked me for it and gave me a big hug. And when I went to buy a new television, he worked at Circuit City, which is closed at the time. He gave me a 30% discount on a great TV, so he kind of repaid me for that. And it showed me that there was something to the forces that were hidden that I used in a ritual. And so then I tried a ritual for a hospital that was having difficulty financially keeping its doors open. And the ritual was done on a Thursday, dedicated to the god Jupiter. And the hospital was going to be going through a certain bankruptcy and close. But when I did the ritual, the hospital did change names, but it never closed. All the other hospitals around the psychiatric facilities went through difficulties. A number of them went bankrupt and just disappeared. This hospital stayed open. And that struck me really hard. And after that, I started getting more clients that I could handle, and that still is true to this day. Even though I changed careers, I still get more clients than I can handle. But I noticed that my income tripled. And noticed that we got a bigger house. Just everything that I had asked for, including the hospital's success, came to me. And all I had done was a simple ritual on a Thursday in the hour of Jupiter, on the day of Jupiter. And I realized that I had discovered something. That the same forces that create the weather, the same forces that create clouds, the same forces that create plants and planets and stars, are waiting for us to use their power to change reality for the better for us. That they have the ability to change our lives by simply following some basic rules. And the basic rules are called rituals. These rituals are something that anybody can learn. They're something that when you apply them, it's just like making a cake. If you put all the ingredients necessary to make a cake in a bowl, and then you mix them up and you put them in a pan and you heat it, you get a cake. Well, rituals are the same way. If you put all the ingredients together, you do the timing right. If you leave a cake in an oven too long, you get burnt flour. You don't get a cake. If you do the ritual the wrong way, the wrong time, without the right ingredients, you don't get the result you want. But if you understand that there are specific timings, that there are specific beings who have one job, and that's to answer a specific request from a human who conducts a ritual properly. And I also knew that when I look back at history, and I start to look at history differently, a lot of authoritarian entities have gone to a great deal of trouble to hide this from us. They don't want us to know that magic works, that rituals work, that there have been great purges in society to kill off anybody who thought of this, to kill off people who understood the concept of religion, and the concept of magic and understood the differences. They worked long and hard to kill off people who had visions or communicated with God. They said they're witches or warlocks. They're not witches or warlocks. They're just people that open their eyes. When you open your eyes and you understand that the problems that you're having in life have a solution, and that there are beings waiting for you to talk with them in the right way at the right time, it's just like making a phone call to a bank. If you got the phone number, you got the right credit, you got the right application, you get money from the bank. Well, there are beings that can give you just what you want in the same way. And in the near future, we're going to be offering some items, not only rituals, but other items that are key to rituals that have already been empowered by ritual that can help you open doors. Rituals are simple, they are effective, and they have been around a long time. The reason that most people don't get what they want in the way of prosperity is because they don't know who to ask, nor do they know how to ask. When I was a poor child growing up in a cold house, I didn't know how to ask. I didn't know who to ask, and I didn't really understand the process or the principle of ritual. When I grew up and I understood better, I've given people some of these secrets, I've worked with them, and it has changed my life. This is my home that you see in the back. We live a very comfortable, very prosperous life. And it's something that I would not be here. And I can say this very honestly. I would not be here had I not understood and learned the principles of ritual, the principles of the specific deities that you work with and that give you power and information. I would not have the home, nor the practice, nor the comfort that we have without working with specific deities. I've offered this information to my family, and they say that you practice voodoo. We don't want to talk to you, except when they struggle, when they need something, they come to me to help them. One of the things we want to do with this broadcast is we want to spread true enlightenment. True enlightenment isn't just sitting under a tree waiting for a perfect thought to hit you. True enlightenment is getting information and knowledge that you can use to make your life better, to make your life easier, and to make your life healthier and more prosperous. When you get the information, it is important not to put it on a shelf, but to use it. It is also important to understand that spiritual information is the most valuable information in the world. There are people in this world who are doctors, lawyers, business people, politicians, movie stars. A lot of them use spiritual principles, spiritual tools, rituals, and magic. And one of the key things you should understand about magic is that people that use it successfully don't give up their secrets. They will sit in front of your face and lie to you and say, I don't know anything about that. I don't use magic, or that stuff is crap. And then they'll go home and do a ritual, and more of what they want, more of their wealth will come into their lives. It's important that once you get a ritual that works for you, keep it to yourself. There's a lot of ignorance in this world. There's a lot of poverty and persistent prejudice in the world. When we begin to offer these items that open doors for you, it is important that you use them and keep their effectiveness to yourself. Enjoy the things that come into your life, but recognize that the world isn't quite ready to be fully enlightened. There are a lot of people in the world that desperately cling to their suffering. You can't change that for them, but you can change it for yourself. And so true poverty comes from opening your mind to the possibilities of working with deities who are waiting to help you, opening your mind to rituals and spells that can change the forces of reality around you, because we all have sleeping power inside of us that we don't use because we're too afraid to use it. We've been told not to, or it's been beaten down in us so much that we don't even look for it. It's also true that this power is something you can learn easily. It's not, a lot of the books that have been written on magic and mysticism were written deliberately to confuse and to discourage people. A lot of that stuff in there, totally unnecessary, doesn't work. A lot of it's written there to mislead you. So what we're going to do is to make it simple, to give you the most effective tools out there. And that includes keyed items, it includes the passwords, it includes the tools that you'll need to open those doors that have been previously closed. So that's what we're going to talk about for prosperity today. And we have quite a number of questions, and unless my wife want to add something to that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a picture sent to us by one of my students. If you can look at the picture, you see this, she's holding a mirror, and I won't give her name, but what you see are these golden images floating off around the crystal, and they look like they're discrete little oblong images. And she wants to know, what is that? Why is it glowing like that? Why do these images show up? And what is this image that I see? So take a good look at that. I want to let everybody take a good look. What you see is a golden parabolic mirror, and you see these images around it that look like miniature suns. A golden parabolic mirror changes the energy of light as it enters into our atmosphere. The incidence of the light striking the mirror is twisted. Instead of being on one plane of incidence, the light hits the mirror and is twisted. Instead of going off in this direction, it may go off in that direction, or in that direction, depending on the mirror. A golden parabolic mirror changes the light in such a way that the positive energy of the light is released. Light has energy locked up inside of it. So what we're seeing probably the energy of X factor coming off of the mirror being distributed out around this person. X factor comes in the world in packets of energy called information factors. And what you're seeing is little packets of X factor coming off of that mirror. That's why when you use a mirror like a parabolic mirror, it releases energy like X factor into the atmosphere, and our advanced students use this in their meditation. Okay, I think that's one question we want to answer. Let's pick another one. This is one that was sent to us from Canada. And what you see, this is a picture of the sun after this particular person had done the ritual for the god Apollo. And what you see is that the sun doesn't look like a normal sun. The sun doesn't normally look like that. And it actually is a ritual that we gave out a few shows ago. And the person wanted to know, why does the sun look like that? Why does the sun have this sort of distorted shape and it has this sphere at the very top? What does that energy mean? And the sun changed for him right after he said this ritual. What we're looking at is the energy of the sun as we interact with it, with the energy of ritual. The sun is an intelligent being. When you speak certain words to the sun, we've had a number of people send us pictures and images saying, the sun responded. It did things when I did that. Well, like I said, it's like making a cake. When you speak the right words in the right way at the right time, you get a response. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not something that is, it's magic, but it's more of a science than it is magic. A great science fiction writer once said that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. If you understand the science of the universe, if you understand the science of the energy and the intelligence of the beings that are the gods of our universe, you can talk to them. And what you end up doing looks like a miracle, but it's really not a miracle. It's science. It's Gnosticism. It is, some people call it magic, but it's really not magic. It's a way of cheating in a way, because if you can talk to a being and get the being to understand, it's no different than using a telephone. A telephone looks like magic because you pick up a device, you dial some numbers, you can talk to somebody in another part of the world. It looks like magic, and 100 years ago it would have been magic, but we know better. It's not magic, it's technology. Well, when you speak to the sun responds, and it gives off energy that is not normally present from its sphere. So that's how we'll answer that particular question. By the way, this is a really interesting picture. In this picture, it shows the relative size of the sun and the earth. And that little dot down there with the arrow next to it, that's the earth. And that big sphere up there, that's the sun. And that shows the size, the relative size of the earth compared to a solar flare. Well, that solar flare fortunately missed the earth. There was one recently. And the Earth is very small, so the sun can put out thousands of solar flares and one not hit us. But it shows how vulnerable we are to the energy of a solar flare relative to the size of the Earth. So, I think that's enough for photos for one day. I think we'll just leave those alone for now. Oh, I gotta show you a cute picture. You gotta see this picture. And it's a picture that just made my daughter crack up. So let me find this picture. It is just hilarious. This is a picture of a goose that landed on a plane while it was flying and is looking in the window of the passenger. It is just absolutely hilarious. And I just wanted to share that with you. It's like, okay, you're flying. It's cool. I just thought it was hilarious. That's just me. So, let us go to some questions. Let's just get one. Something strange, and I'm just going to read them off my iPad because it's easier to do it that way. Something strange happened today on my mobile iPhone. I turned it on and briefly saw pictures of two medallions flash on the screen. I checked my emails and the Tybro website and couldn't find them. One was the Anabacoa shiny silver medallion, and the other was silver, but I don't remember what it was. Is Dr. Gibson creating an Anabacoa medallion? It's interesting that so many people see the images of medallions that we're creating before we actually create them. Medallions, we create a number of them, and I'll tell you why. Medallions are the way that the universe communicates energy from stars to planets. You can create a medallion that will capture a specific kind of energy, and it will always radiate that kind of energy just by the person wearing it. When we put on a medallion, and I'm right now wearing my Word of Power medallion, the medallion goes into your aura, and the aura is intelligent. It will activate the energies of the medallion and perform certain functions for the wearer. We've shown people when they come to the office what a medallion, what it does to your aura, how your aura changes, because the aura instantly picks up the energy of the medallion and changes it. Now, we have created about 5 different new medallions, and we're working on 2 new ones. And one of the new ones has to do with my beautiful wife, and it has to do with the energy or processing the energy of the divine feminine energy in the universe. It's a medallion that has a beautiful image of an angel and is partly gold and partly silver. The other medallion has the energy of the divine masculine force, and it's a very virile, strong angel with beautiful, brilliant, fiery wings, showing the energy and radiating the energy of the divine masculine force. And they will be actually ready in about a week. So this person was actually seeing the energy of the medallions that we're creating, and they didn't know about the principles that we were using, but you actually saw that we were creating these, so you had a real vision. Congratulations. Let me just pick another one here. Good day, Dr. Gibson, aka Dr. G. I trust all is well. I gave my Archangel Gabriel medallion to a friend to have him put it on a necklace made of onyx stones. He told me that it looked so good he didn't want to take it off. He was going to the park and took the necklace off, and something spoke to him telling him not to take it off. He responded by saying, "I will put you back on when I come back." He took it off and sprained his ankle. When he got back home, he put it back on and his ankle started to heal, and he was told not to take it off. He took it off again and almost sprained his thumb. He and I both want to know, what does this mean? The Archangel medallions have a very specific hidden property. They can protect us. They can offer the energy of the angels that have given us their sigils to use in the medallion. They can help protect us from deep, dark, negative karma. So the Archangel Gabriel, that was the voice that you heard, was warning you about dark, negative karma coming towards you. And all you had to do is keep it on to be protected from it. Karma comes towards us in waves of energy. And if this energy is blocked, you don't get to sprain your ankle or have the accident. The ego pushes divine inspiration away. It doesn't want us to hear the divine inspiration. And so you were testing the divine power. And the divine power showed you what would have happened if you had listened. You wouldn't have gotten the sprained ankle. But now you understand that when you wear the medallion, it protects you from waves of negative karma coming towards you. So that's the answer to your question, hopefully. Let us pick another one. I have a few general questions. I won't give you a name here. Someone told me that when honoring your ancestors and making offerings, if that person did not live a good life, was poor, sick, especially in transitioning, offerings should not be made to them because they did not have an honorable life and they will not be able to direct any blessings to me. How true is that, Dr. Gibson? Is that the case? So you're saying that if a person lived a bad life, should we give them offerings? That's an excellent question. There are some people that have very dark negative karma around them. And that no matter what you do in the way of offerings, your offerings can't really change their life in the way that you choose to. It's important to make offerings for our ancestors as a group. Because any offering that you make, especially offerings backed up by prayer, will penetrate into their deep, dark, negative karma. Don't punish people because they had bad lives. Make offerings to try to make their lives better. If a person died poor or in bad health, in a bad situation, most likely they're going to go to a lower part of the astral world. The offerings help make that person and make their lives better. So it's our obligation to try to do the best that we can to try to help them. I mean, at some point it could be somebody you love, it could be somebody you live with that would benefit from that offering. So it's important that you use that offering to try to help them. I have pictures on my altar of my two brothers who passed away. I do not have any pictures of my grandparents, and I'm not sure if we can acquire any. Can my brothers represent our ancestors, or is it imperative that our grandparents have pictures on the altar? No. If you have pictures of people who are in your family who transition, it can connect you with all your ancestors who transition, so you don't necessarily need pictures of your ancestors. Just say this offering is given toward my ancestors, and that's good enough. When burning, and these are very good questions, by the way. When burning ancestor money, is it necessary to burn of individual money for the creator, spiritual, gods, parents, gods, goddesses, archangels, master teachers, etc.? Or can one note be burned to symbolize general offerings for all of the above? You can use one note. You don't have to use individual money for all of it. What we do is we set our offering out, and then we burn spiritual money as an offering for all the gods, deities, teachers, ancestors that we work with. And you can do it that way, and it works just fine. You don't need to use individual notes. And it helps preserve your money that way. This is a nice note that I just wanted to share. I just wanted to say that I truly enjoyed Kathy's spotlight, and she has shared her experiences. It has been uplifting and amazing. She has had several cases, and I'm familiar with some of those that she talked about, and I'm glad that you're sharing this type of information that's not covered in our media. Please continue sharing this wonderful information. I love how you two demonstrate support for each other while doing the cast. Great sense of humor and energy between you two. Thanks again. I love this woman. This woman is my right and my left hand. And she also has a great sense of humor. Stop tickling me. I'm on TV now. Save that for later. This is another person that wrote a great note. I just wanted to let you know I purchased and downloaded your Sound Prosperity, and the results have been amazing. I started listening to it on YouTube and decided I needed to buy the whole thing. I trade stocks for a living, and it seems that this has given me a whole new level of intuition. I would like to schedule a call to discuss this in more detail, but I think it would be better for me to use the download for a few more weeks. This is amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for writing in. I'm glad that the stocks are going better for you and that the intuition is going. The sound of prosperity is an energy frequency that encodes some of the power that we talked about. Rituals can be conducted, but you also can use the power of ritual in some of our sound recordings. And he discovered he could use this power, make a lot more money. Hey, we could use the 10% if you want to do that for us, brother. Thank you very much. Anyway. So let's see. let's do one more and then we will call it a day. Let's find a good one. This is a good one. I've noticed throughout my spiritual journey that dreams have been a door of some sort. Actually, I think I answered that one already, so we'll skip that one. Oh, this is a good one. We haven't done this one, then we'll stop. In layman's term, what is the difference between monoatomic gold and colloidal gold? Basically, you can use them interchangeably. We use monoatomic gold in some of our advanced work, with some of our advanced students. Monatomic or colloidal, you can use them interchangeably. We purchase it from a place called puristcolloids.com, and the products that we like to use are mesogold and mesoplatinum, and also we like to use mesoiridium. So those are the main ones we use. Again, puristcolloids.com. We thank everybody for sitting with us this time. We got, yes, sorry, that's right. Kathy said, remind them to only use one drop. The instructions say to use more, but we ask you to use only one drop. That's more than enough. You don't need to use any more than that. Thank you for sitting with us this time. We're going to be offering some great new products and ideas, and this is my beautiful wife. So, hey, I like that. You do that again. And we will see everybody next week. Thank you so much for sitting with us, and we'll have more great information for you. And this is for those who said they couldn't see me. Now they saw me the whole show. Thank you so much.